Unit 1 Definition of narrative text. A definition of narrative. What is narrative text? Narrative text is an imaginative story by entertained people. Meaning of narrative text: a spoke or written account of connected event story, the narrated part of a literary work, as distinct from dialogue. The practice or art of narrative. B. Purpose. The purpose of narrative text is to extertain or amuse readers or listeners about the story. C. The characteristics of narrative text. Focuses in one character. The pronoun used for the character are I, we, she, he. Commonly uses past tenses, either the simple past tense, past continuous tense, past perfect tense, and past perfect continuous. Sometimes uses dialogues to engage the reader, imagine that the story is more clearly visible and tangible. Usually uses conjunctions in order to make the story chronologically and coherently. Example of reading: The Legend of Bali Strait. In Daha Kingdom there lived a powerful Brahmin named Siddhi Mantra. Her son's name was Manik Onkaran. Manik Onkaran liked to gamble. One day, Manik Onkaran could not pay the debt. He asked help to father. Loving his son, Siddhi Mantra fasted, then prayed to the god. A mysterious voice asked him to meet Nagabasuka at Agung Mount. By ringing a jenta, Nagabasuka come and gave gold as well as diamonds from his skulls. Soon Manik Onkaran finished all gold and diamonds. He asked help to his father again. Siddhi Mantra come to Nagabasuka again. This time, Manik Onkaran secretly followed Siddhi Mantra. A few days later, Manik Onkaran stole father's jenta, then come to Nagabasuka. Manik Onkaran got gold and diamonds. But he was no satisfied. Manik Onkaran saw a big gem at the end of Dragon's Tail. When Nagabasuka turned toward a cave, Manik Onkaran immediately cut off Dragon's Tail, then ran away. Nagabasuka was furious, then licked Manik Onkaran's footprints. Then he turned into ashes. Siddhi Mantra was aware of this situation. He begged Nagabasuka to revive his son. Nagabasuka agreed if his tail was back. With magic, Siddhi Mantra returned Dragon's Tail back to normal. Then, Nagabasuka revived Manik Onkaran. Siddhi Mantra knew that he could not live with Manik Onkaran anymore. With a magical wand, Siddhi Mantra made a line that separated his from son. There comes sprints growing into a sea. This is the legend of Bali Strait separating Java from Bali. The moral lesson of the story: we can conclude that we mustn't lie and always keep our promise, and don't break our promise that we said. Read the following sentences carefully. Write T if true or F if false. _1. Her son's name was Manik Onkaran. _2. Manik Onkaran liked to singing. _3. Siddhi Mantra come to Jakarta. This time, Manik Onkaran secretly followed Siddhi Mantra. _4. Manik Onkaran stole mother's jenta, then come to Nagabasuka. _5. Manik Onkaran saw a big gem in the end of Aragon's tail. _6. Manik Onkaran's turned into ashes. Then Nagabasuka was furious and licked his footprints. _7. The Legend of Bali Strait separating Java from Bali. _8. Nagabasuka revived Manik Onkaran after Siddhi Mantra returned Dragon's Tail back to normal with his magic. Unit 2 Type of narrative text. Type of narrative text. There are several kinds of narrative form. These kind are based on the story types. This fable is a story about animal which behave like human. Example: the ants and the grasshoppers and mouse, deer and crocodile. Myths are stories beloved by some people, but the stories cannot be true. It was told in an ancient culture to explain a practice befaf or natural occurrence. Example: the story of rainbow. Legend is a story which relates to how a place is formed. Example: the legend of Toba Lake and the legend of Malankundang. Fairy tale is a story which relate much which magic things. Example: Cinderella and Snow White. Science fiction story is a story which explore the science as the background or plot the whole story. Example: To the Moon from the Earth by Jules Verne. Parables is a story that illustrates one or more instructive lessons or principles. Parable differs from a fable. Example: The Boy Who Cried Wolf and Good Samaritan. Horror story is a story with horror contents. Example: The Girl and the Duel. Example of reading: The Two Ducks and the Fox. One day, two ducks walked along the road to go to the lake for their swim. In the middle of the road, they met Mr. Fox. He sat under the tree. "Hello, sister. Where are you going?" asked Mr. Fox. "Good morning, Mr. Fox. We are going to lake over there. We want to swim. Would you like to join us?" asked the ducks. "No thanks. Do you both come along here every day?" asked Mr. Fox. "Yes, we always walk here every morning," said the ducks. "Delicious, nice to see you both," said Mr. Fox. The next day, the first duck said, "Are we going to swim today? I bet that Mr. Fox is waiting for us, and he has a bad plane." "I know, I have a plan for him too," said the second duck. On their way they met Mr. Fox again. "Hello, sisters, going to swim again?" asked Mr. Fox. "Yes, we are. Why don't you take us to the lake and protect us from bad animals?" said the second duck. "Of course, it's my pleasure," replied Mr. Fox. "This is an easy way to have a free lunch. I have a big bag with me now, though, Mr. Fox." Three of them walked to the lake and sang some songs. "When I say run, let's run fast together," said the second duck. "Run." They ran so fast and jumped into the lake. Mr. Fox jumped upon them, but he forgot that he could not swim. So, Mr. Fox drowned in the lake. He failed to get his free lunch. The moral lesson of the story above is do not ever intend evil to someone, because evil is self-inflicted. Narrative text. Read the text, then choose the best choice to each questions. 1. Who are the characters in the story? A. Dogs of horses and crocodiles. C. Cinderella. B. Two ducks and fox. D. Wolf in sheep's clothing. 2. Where do the two ducks meet the 10 foxes? A. Lake. C. Forest. B. House. D. Swimming pool. 3. Why do foxes always wait for two ducks in the lake? Because A. Forcing his swim. C. To play. B. Watching together. D. Eating the two ducks. 4. When did the fox always wait for two ducks? A. Afternoon. C. Every day. B. Noon. D. Evening. 5. What is the moral message of the story? A. Do not choose garbage carelessly. B. Do not make trouble. C. Do not ever intend evil on someone because the crime will harm our own. D. Pain early fun then. Unit 3 Generic structure of narrative text. Generic structure. Generic structure of narrative text focuses in a series of steps proposed to build story. A. Orientation. Introduction in which the characters, setting, and story time are set. Usually answer the question who is the participants? What is the place setting? The questions mean to introduce the participants or the characters of the story, with the times and place set. Orientation actually exists in every text throughout it has different term. For example, once upon a time, there was a wolf lived in the forest. B. Complication or problem, telling the beginning of the problem that caused the crisis, climax. Complication usually involves the main character. It is such the crisis the story. If here is not the crisis, the story is not a narrative text. In a long story, the complication occurs in several situations. It means that sign time there is one then one complication. Problems that arise can be distinguished. Natural conflict, the problems that arise because the perpetrators of stories dealing with the forces of nature. Social conflict, the problems that arise because the perpetrators were facing each other. They met at the same time with different interest. Psychological conflict, the problems that arise when dealing with the perpetrators of the story itself. The opposition between good and bad, between greed and tolerance. C. Resolutions, ends of story can be a solution of the problems. The need for resolution of the problem. The problem can be solved, can be better or worse, happy or sad. Sometimes, there are several complications that must be solved. This adds to the tensions and maintain interest and for his readers. It is final series of this events which happen in the story. The resolution can be good or bad. The point is that it has been accomplished by the characters. D. Reorientation, a statement of the cover story is optional. It can contain moral lesson, advice or instruction from the author. Example of reading. The Legend of Surabaya. A long time ago in East Java there were two strong animals, Sura and Baya. Sura was a shark and Baya was a crocodile. They lived in the sea. Once Sura and Baya were looking for some food. Suddenly, Baya saw a goat. Yummy, this is my lunch, said Baya. No way. This is my lunch. You are greedy. I had not eaten for 2 days, said Sura. Then Sura and Baya fought again. After several hours, they were very tired. Feeling tired of them, they both lived in the different places. Sura lived in the water and Baya lived in the land. The border was the beach, so they would never fight again. One day, Sura went to the land and looked for some food in the river. He was very hungry and there was not much food in the sea. Baya was very angry when he knew that Sura broke the promise. They fought again. They both hit each other. Sura bit Baya's tail. Baya did the same thing to Sura. He bit very hard until Sura finally gave up. He went back to the sea. Baya was very happy. The moral lesson of the story above is never broke the promise that you've made and don't be greedy. Narrative text. The generic structure of narrative text above is 1. Orientation, Sura and Baya as the participants of the story. Remember, a participants can be a character as another form. 2. Complication, there is a complication seen among the participants. It is the fighting between Sura and Baya. They fight for food happen several times and they determine the plot of the story a whole. 3. Resolution, Baya is happy because Sura gives up in the last fighting. Answer the following questions based on the text. 1. What is the title of the text above? 2. How many characters were there in the story? 3. What was the shark's name? 4. What was the crocodile name? 5. Where did Sura and Baya live before the fight? 6. Did Baya see a goat under the tree? 7. What was the border? 8. Where did Sura and Baya live after the fight? 9. Where did Sura look for some food? 10. Who did break the promise? Unit 4 Language features of narrative text. Language features: using simple past tense, using simple past perfect, simple continuous tense and past perfect continuous tenses. That is a form of sentence that use simple past tense at events that occur or the past time. The verb used is verb 2, example, she swept the floor. Using adjective. Adjective is a word that describes or modifies person, animal, place, or thing in a sentence. Example, beautiful, small, good, etc. Using adverbs. Adverb often tells when, where, why, or, under, what conditions something happens or happened. Example, once upon a time, adverbs of time. Example of reading. The Legend of Jambi Kingdom. Once upon a time, there were 5 villages, Tujuh Kodo, Sembilan Kodo, Patajan, Muaro Sebo, and Batanduo Balas. The villagers of those 5 villages lived peacefully. They helped each other. Soon, the number of villagers grew highly. The villagers thought that they needed a leader to guide them. They wanted to have a king. So, the leaders from the 5 villages had a meeting. They wanted to set the criteria who could be their king. Our king should be physically strong, said the leader from Tujuh Kodo. I agree. The king should be able to protect us from the enemies, said one leader. Not only that, he should also be well respected by us. So, the king should be strong and have good manners, said the leader from Patajan. Then, let's set the criteria. I have a suggestion. The king should be strong from fire. He cannot feel the pain if we burn him, said leader from Muaro Sebo. And he cannot feel the pain when we boil him in the hot water. If we mill him in winding machine, he will survive, said another leader. All right then, now every village must send one representative. Choose the best man in your village. He must be the strongest and the most respected, said one leader. Later, the best 5 men were gathered in the field. All the leaders had prepared fire, a hot water, and a winding machine. The first one to come was the villager of Tujuh Kodo. First he had to walk through a ring of fire. He survived. Audiences were applauding. Next he had to be boiled inside a big water jug. The water was so hot but still he survived. Finally, he had to do the last test. He had to enter the winding machine. The machine was made of steel. The man was a bit scared. He knew his bones could break. Then, he was lying on the surface. Right after his feet were milled, he screamed in pain. The machine was stopped. He failed. Then another contestant came forward. Unfortunately, he also failed in the last test. Then came another contestant, but he also failed. All the best men from 5 villagers failed. The leaders of the 5 villagers then had a meeting. If we cannot find a king from our place, let us find from other area. They then sailed the sea. And every time they visited an island, they always looked for the best man. However, no one dared to take the tests. Finally, they arrived in India. There was a strong man there. They met him and talked about the tests. The man was interested and they went back to their hometown. When they arrived, the man immediately took the tests. He passed the first test. Then, he was boiled in the hot water and amazingly he survived. And then the final test. When he was lying on the surface, everybody screamed. They were afraid the man's bones would break just like other contestants' bones. But they were wrong. The man survived. He passed the test. All the villagers were happy. They finally had a strong king that could protect them. And they named their kingdom as Jambi. Narrative text. Language features from the story above. Paragraph 1. Adverb. Adverbs of time. One upon a time. Simple past tense. Helped. Verb 2. Were. Paragraph 2. Adverb. Adverb of time. Soon. Simple past tense. Wanted. Paragraph 3. Adverb. Adverb of time. Later. Simple past perfect tense. Had prepared. Simple past continuous tense. Was Li Ying. Simple past tense. Screamed. Visited. Failed. Was. Had to. Paragraph 4. Simple past tense. Arrived. Met. Passed. Survived. Went. Screamed. Was. Simple past continuous tense. Was Li Ying. Adjective. Strong. Paragraph 5. Simple past tense. Passed. Survived. Were. Adjective. Adjective. Strong. Answer the following questions based on the text. 1. How many names of villages are there in the kingdom of Jambi? Mention it. 2. Who proposed the conditions that a leader must have for the kingdom of Jambi? 3. What test must be carried out by the prospective leaders? 4. How many candidates must each village send? 5. After the prospective leaders failed, where could the villages find leaders who passed through all the tests given? Example of reading. Timun Mas. Once upon a time, an old widow wanted a daughter to live with her in the village. Knowing her wish, a huge giant visited her house. He gave her a cucumber seed. He told the old widow that there will be a baby inside the cucumber. The giant promised to come back for the baby when she turned 16. The old widow planted the seed in her yard. By the next morning, a cucumber grew. She cut it open and found a baby girl inside. The old widow was so happy and named the baby Timun Mas. Day by day, Timun Mas grew into a beautiful lady. The widow remembered what the giant had warned her. So when Timun Mas turned 16, the widow told her to run into the jungle with a bag of salt. "You must not let the giant catch you," the widow cried out as Timun Mas ran into the jungle. The giant came and asked the widow for Timun Mas. The widow refused to tell him and so he went into the jungle. He angrily called out for Timun Mas. Timun Mas heard his voice and ran away from him. The giant chased her. Timun Mas threw the salt that the widow had given her. It turned the jungle into a muddy field. The muddy field swallowed the giant and he was never seen again. Finally, Timun Mas returned home and lived happily ever after with the old widow. The moral lesson of the story above is we should not threaten and be evil to others because we will get the punishment worth it. Answer the following questions based on the text. 1. Who is the name of Timun's mom? 2. Where did Timun Mas born from? 3. When did the problem begin in the story? 4. Why does Timun Mas throw her things to Budo Ijo? Because. 5. How did the Budo Ijo die? Match each word to the word or phrase with a similar meaning.